Well, what an absolutely delightful morning and unexpected surprise this is. As you can see behind me, there's some glorious fog, and I almost didn't come out. I checked on the weather apps early this morning and nothing suggested that there was going to be mist and fog in the valley here, but I thought I'll take my chances anyway. I have been trying in recent mornings. I've had a lot of early starts and not had a huge amount of success, so I am very tired. I probably look a little bit rough, but who cares, because I'm out now. And we've got this fog in the valley here, and it's the first time I've seen fog filling this woodland since discovering it over a year ago. So yeah, a real treat. So this particular area here I've passed through many times, and I've always felt as if there's got to be something good here, but nothing has really caught my eye. So I decided to root around a bit more this morning, just to try some different angles, and I've come across something that I'm really enjoying. It's quite indicative as well of the type of image that I'm looking for these days. I think I've spent a lot of time in the past, over recent years, looking for those individual characters, those standout trees that really stand out from the crowd, and I still very much enjoy doing that. But I'm trying to challenge myself more with these more kind of intricate scenes that bring in a lot more elements, and then trying to capture all those elements with harmony and to get flow in the scene, and non-distracting elements. And it is a challenge in woodland to bring in these wider views and to be able to achieve that. But when you do find it, it's really satisfying. And this here really works for me. It's not that kind of instant impact photograph necessarily, but because of the detail and the different elements and the layers and the depth, I think it rewards you for just looking at it a little bit longer. I don't know how it will come across on something like Instagram, but certainly as a print and viewed at a larger scale, I think it would work really well. So what we've got is these alder trees. Now alder trees, they're a lovely tree, and it's something that I'm enjoying more recently because they've got some nice texture in the bark, and this time of year the leaves are looking really quite nice. They don't really take on much colour in the autumn time, so now is a really good time to photograph them. So we've got this, it's green overload, but I quite like that, to be honest. I just love that kind of fresh vibrancy, and it suits these foggy mornings, and it's so still and calm, so it's going to be really nice to bring out all that detail and texture in the image. And when I talk about flow, I'm looking for direction and a way to navigate the image. Not necessarily an obvious way to navigate, but so long as it encourages the eye to travel around the scene, but ultimately always be drawn back in rather than off the edges. So we've got this tree over on the right hand side which leans in, and the crown of that is kind of sitting between the gap in some of these foreground alder trees. We've got another branch leaning in from left to right. We've got a cluster of trees over on the right hand side, and they're kind of curving in at the top, so we've got some nice natural framing and these things offering direction and encouragement to be drawn to the centre of the image. And right through, bang in the middle of the image, is I think an elderflower tree, so there's a bit of blossom coming on that, so that's just catching the light, so that's standing out really nice as a nice central compositional component in the image. And also very good is that the background trees also have some nice separation and just sit very nicely in the gaps in these foreground trees. So all in all, it's coming together very well. The foreground, the understory, is just a nice solid band of green, so all the foliage of there is given a nice natural frame to the top. We've got the nice natural frame at the bottom, we've got the nice natural frame at the top with the canopy of the alder trees, some nice framing left and right with the tree trunks, and there's, like I said, everything converging inwards. So for me it's quite a nice image to read and to explore. And another thing that I'm looking for a lot these days is layers. So it's particularly important when it's not foggy, I think, is to look for those layers in colour, layers in light and shadow, just to help give depth to an image. And we have got those layers here, and it's not just the layers because of the fog, the light is encouraging that as well. So it's a little bit darker in the foreground. We've got this first lot of alder trees, and then we've got a bit of an opening in the canopy because of the river that flows through. So the light is gathering in there, so the light's hitting the elderflower tree. And then we've got some of the darkness of the trees on the other side of the river, and then the feeling of the light coming down through the fog further back. And the brightest point in the image is smack in the middle. So again, not just the physical forms drawing us inwards, but the light as well drawing us towards the middle. So for me, it's really nice. And what I've decided to do, because I had a bit of a, I shouldn't laugh because I'm quite annoyed with myself, but I was walking along the other day with my tripod in my hand and the camera attached to the end, which is a foolish thing to do, because I slipped, the camera hit the floor and it's broken the lens, and that's my favourite lens, the 24-70 2.8. I almost use that exclusively for the vast majority of my local work, so it's such a fantastic lens. So I'm quite annoyed that I don't have that. I do have a 24-105, but because I want to draw plenty of detail out of this scene, I've decided to put the 55mm prime on, because that's a nice crisp sharp lens, and do a 4 or 5 shot panoramic, and that should stitch together really nicely and really bring out all that lovely texture and detail. I don't think there's any forecast for the sun to try and break through. I mean, that would be quite phenomenal if we had that as well, but quite content with this sort of soft foggy image. So hopefully it'll linger around for a bit longer. I've got an idea of another little area that I want to go to, so I'm going to cross over the river, have a look over there, and then hopefully make something else work. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this one. I can't say that I'm leaving much time for things like B-roll and production value, but when you've got mornings like this, which are a bit of a rare treat in certain locations, photography has to take priority. So I've been rushing around a little bit, just making sure that I get a couple of strong images in before the fog starts to lift, and I feel pretty sure that the fog will start to lift quite soon. So in contrast to the last image, this one's a little bit more simplistic in that it's got an obvious tree subject. So we've got more older trees again, but we've got this young one in the foreground here, which just has a lovely form to it and just arches over the top at the base of this much taller, older tree. And we've got these fantastic ferns at the base, and then some lovely depth as we look down beyond this main subject, and we've got some nice shapes to the trees in the distance and some nice little squiggles at the top of the frame as well. And we've got some older trees left and right just to help frame things. Not ideal is the older tree over on the right hand side, which is just leaning out a little bit, but I think I'm going to accept that. I think it's absolutely fine, to be honest. It is even more green overload. It would be nice to see a little bit more difference in colour, or even just some more obvious differences in the hues of green, but it seems to be fairly consistent with its green throughout the image. But with the fog, I think it will be enough. It's certainly going to feel like quite a fresh image. It's not particularly damp actually. I mean, it would be nice for everything to be absolutely soaking wet, because all that wet, fresh, late spring foliage just does really nice things for reflecting light. But it's been very strange, the mist that we've had recently. We've had these mornings where there's been a lot of mist and fog around, but it's also felt incredibly dry and warm compared to what I typically expect in these conditions. But yeah, I'm not complaining. This is fantastic, and you could probably hear all the time that I'm talking and the birds in the background. It's absolutely gorgeous. So with this one, it's a little bit of a tighter crop. So obviously I've got the 3:2 aspect ratio on. Meg just made me jump then. She just appeared through the foliage then. She's staring at me at the top of the hill. Anyway, yeah, it's a 3:2 aspect ratio obviously, but with the 6:4 grid pattern on the back, I've framed up a 5:4 crop. So I think that's probably what I'm aiming for. So just the ferns along the bottom. I'm taking the sky out in this one. There's no reason to have it in. So the main source of light really, there are going to be like tiny patches of sky coming in, but the main feeling of light is just off to the right hand side of that young alder tree, where ultimately that's where we want the kind of depth and attention to be anyway. Again, keeping that attention in the centre of the image. There is a snapped, big snapped tree over in the distance, so I've just kind of shuffled myself, just because it's such a light distracting part where that tree is snapped. I've just shuffled myself so it's just about hidden behind some of the foliage. And then we've got just next to this young alder tree, I've tried to separate that main trunk from some of the trunks in the background as well. So just as as usual, just these very small movements to get that separation, so everything has a little bit of breathing room, and it makes it a bit easier to kind of read the image. And I think it's that kind of space, the space in the image is just as important as the subjects themselves, and particularly when you've got the fog like this, that little bit of breathing room and a touch of airiness where possible helps to kind of just contributes to that feeling of calm, I think. So yeah, well, if I'm shooting f11 again, because I'm zoomed in a little bit, I'll lose a little bit of depth of field, so I don't want to throw the background out of focus too much. So that should work quite well. Right, I'm going to dash off again. I've got that one, but it'd be really nice to get one more image in before this fog lifts. So yeah, fingers crossed. I'm just about to line up an image here. The fog is starting to lift, so I better grab this image before it disappears entirely. So essentially what we've got is these fabulous ash trees. And ash trees are probably one that I've not really photographed that much over the years. But they are fantastic for reflecting light, and when they get wet, they're quite dry now, but when they get wet they can have a very rich reflective colour as well. But there's a lovely recession of these ash trees, and they just fall away into the valley floor. You can't see the river, but on the other side of the river there's some alder trees down there. And it's just got a nice bit of depth to it. I mean, I would have preferred a little bit more fog than what there is now, just to add to that depth and highlight that recession. But it still works quite well. There are some challenges in that because they fall away and there's nothing over on the right hand side here, we've got a lot of kind of empty green space. So I'm kind of using that as negative space, if you like, and it does provide quite a nice contrast of colour to the ash tree. So we've got the coolness of the green in the... Oh, sorry, that's Meg playing in the river. She gets a bit carried away when she's playing like that, but she's enjoying herself, so I'll leave her to it. So yeah, kind of treating it as negative space, it gives this lovely contrast of colour against the warmth of the ash trees. So ideally, I think what I want is to have a nice sort of solid band of green to frame the left hand side, and then there's the green coming down the valley side, and then over on the right we've got some ivy coming up the alder trees, so I'll probably use that to help frame the right there. One thing that I should say is that generally in woodland I'm not trying to get the camera level, it's just whatever looks level, because these ash trees are definitely leaning because of the kind of hillside, and the sunlight tends to be over in that direction. They are leaning a little bit left to right, so my camera is at a bit of an angle, but that's what looks best, and it's very much a kind of left to right image as you just follow the fall of the ash trees down into the valley. But yeah, I quite like it. It works quite well. Quite happy with that. I'll probably shoot at f11 again. I won't focus on the first tree, but the next one in, that's going to get this first lot of trees in focus and all this lovely texture down here, and then it will get softer back there. So that should work quite well. But yeah, I'm quite content now, to be honest. I think I'm just going to wander around, enjoy being here for a bit longer. But to be quite honest, I'm really quite tired. I'm looking forward to going back and having a very strong coffee, and then having a look at these photographs on the big screen. Right, that's me done, I think, but what a beautiful morning that was. Really enjoyed it. I think somehow more magical and special when you're not expecting it whatsoever. But yeah, time to head back, have that strong coffee I was talking about, and I think Meg will be zonked out for the rest of the day. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it too. Please check out my website for things like prints, and even just using the affiliate links really does help me out a lot. Yeah, so please take a look at that. But thank you very much for watching this episode, and as always, I hope to see you for the next one.